And welcome back, everybody. We're staying in Broward County, Florida to finish off the show for another new development. Judge Elizabeth Scherer announced this week that she's officially leaving the bench at the end of June. Now, you might remember that Scherer wrote a brief resignation letter to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday, expressing her gratitude to serve the state for over a decade. And earlier in the year, the judge told members of the media that she intended to resign after the penalty phase of the Parkland school shooter case in order to pursue other career options. In November, a jury recommended life in prison without parole instead of the death penalty for the shooter who killed 17 people at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. Judge Scherer presided over the high-profile case, which happened to be her first murder trial. She got some backlash from spectators and legal observers alike, who felt that she had a bias in favor of the prosecution. After the sentencing, she was seen hugging members of the prosecution team and also members of the victims' families. Scherer also frequently sparred with members of the defense team throughout the proceedings. Here's an example.
I just want to say this is the most uncalled for, unprofessional way to try a case. You all knew about this, and even if you didn't make your decision until this morning, to have 22 people plus all of this staff and every attorney march into court, be waiting as if it's some kind of game. Now I have to send them home. The state's not ready. They're not going to have a witness ready. We have another day wasted. I honestly have never experienced a level of unprofessionalism in my career. It's unbelievable.
I have been practicing in this county for 22 years.
You know what? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Well, Judge, you're insulting me on the record in front of my client, and I believe that I should be able to defend myself.
You can do that later. You can make your record later, but you've been insulting me the entire trial. So, blatantly, taking your headphones off, arguing with me, storming out, coming late intentionally if you don't like my rulings. So, quite frankly, this has been long overdue.
Does everyone remember that? Well, Terry, you closely watched the sentencing proceedings. You think the judge fairly presided over the whole process?
To me, I think she showed her bias. I think the defense was correct about that. We saw just there where the defense was talking about how, in fact, the judge didn't allow them to curtail the number of witnesses. They have every right to have a witness list and to curtail the number because they have a strategy. And the judge really went at them there. The other issue, and this is the bigger, more important issue, is no question about it, the victim impact statements really attack the defense. The defense is just doing their job. They had to advocate for their client. And I do think the way the judge allowed those victim impact statements to target the defense attorneys personally, even talking about their children, and she didn't in any way, shape, or form allow them to curtail what they were doing. She definitely should have said something about that. She didn't let the defense argue that. She made them basically sit down. And I also think finally that she should not have gone up and hugged the prosecution and hugged the victims personally. The judge is supposed to be unbiased, and they're supposed to just make sure that they are fair throughout the trial. And when we see something like that, it does make you feel as though she's leaning in one direction and not the other.
Well, Brian, you have some pretty strong opinions on how Judge Scherer ended up resigning. Care to share what those opinions are?
Yeah, Jesse, so I agree with Terry. Actually, as a former public defender, I don't think this judge should be on the bench anymore based on what Terry said and more. But my issue is the optics of how she was booted out. My understanding was this trial happened, right? And then she was supposed to be scheduled for another death penalty case, and she was booted out of that case, it seems like, because of how the result went in the Parkland shooter case, even though she's pretty heavily on the prosecution side. So all judges are out looking and saying, hey, if I don't come down heavier on the prosecution and the verdict doesn't come the way it's supposed to be, could I be getting booted off of cases and maybe losing opportunities? I don't like the optics there.
Well, I am curious to see what she does next. We will see. Brian, Terry, thank you both so much. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to see you next time as we discuss justice in America.